Hello everybody, my name's Cooper Finer, this is Coop's Covers, and today I'm going to argue that the Ram's Head Big Muff is the perfect all-around fuzz pedal, and if you don't have one, you should. We live in an age of boutique fuzz craziness where there are 2, 3, and 4 transistor fuzzes, there's germanium and silicon. The boutique market is absolutely crazy trying to get us to care about the individual transistors that are in each fuzz pedal. Vintage fuzz prices for fuzz faces, for tone benders, for original Ram's Head Big Muffs have skyrocketed. And the interesting thing about the Big Muff is that it doesn't seem to care about it. It is a 4 transistor fuzz. It is very affordably priced in the Electro Harmonix series. It is silicon, which means that you don't have to worry about the issues that germanium poses with regard to temperature changes. But it's interesting because if you look at companies like Analog Man and Reeves Boutique, they're these boutique companies that try and make you care about the particular transistors in those fuzzes. So with Analog Man, you have the BC108 and the NKT275. Whether it has a white or red dot on it even matters significantly. And this is good because for certain people, being obsessive over that helps them get their tone. But for most people, I think it just confuses the market and causes us to pay more money than it's really worth. So I think even you see MXR and some standard companies going along with this and kind of putting BC108 fuzz on their fuzz pedals in order to make you care about the transistors that are in these things. And I think that can be damaging to the tonal search when really everybody knows what a fuzz face sounds like and we have a sound in our head. Everybody knows what a tone bender should sound like, and everybody knows what a Big Muff sounds like, and the particularities of that should be experienced, not talked about on forums. So this is a relatively affordable vintage style fuzz pedal that I think is the best all-around fuzz pedal. One of the reasons that I think the Ram's Head Big Muff is one of the best fuzz pedals is it works well with both humbuckers and single coils. So as a Strat player, I love Strats with fuzzes, and I think most people use fuzz circuits with Strats, or at least with single coils like Tellys. Fuzz face style circuits work particularly well for this, and to use them with humbuckers, you often have the low end of them kind of bottom out a bit. So Joe Bonamassa, one of my favorite guitar players, actually had Dunlop design him a fuzz face that uses a particular transistor that works better with humbuckers. However, you could just get yourself a Big Muff. This pedal works amazingly with both humbucker guitars that I have that are very bass heavy, such as my 335, and also my Strat, my Jaguar. It works amazing, and historically you've seen both players, a humbucker player and a single coil player, use Big Muff circuits. Note definition is key for the Ram's Head Big Muff sound particularly, and I think that that note definition in particular is what makes it so good with both humbuckers and single coils. Where you can lose that note definition on humbuckers, the Ram's Head Big Muff keeps it there for you. And so that's why I would argue that the Ram's Head Big Muff is the best of all the Big Muff reissues. However, really any Big Muff will do that sound for you. I would go for the Ram's Head Big Muff. Another argument that I would make is that it is a fuzz that you play, not a fuzz that plays you. And what I mean by that is that certain fuzzes are very finicky. Certain fuzzes make your amp sound absolutely uncontrollably crazy. And this is wonderful, but it means that oftentimes you hear guitarists and guitar YouTubers saying, oh, you play to the fuzz. You need to incorporate it into your rig so that it doesn't just seemingly flow through you. And I think this can actually be both a blessing in terms of artistic creativity, but also a curse in terms of trying to just freely flow your ideas through your pedal board, through your amp, and eventually into audio. And I think that the Big Muff works well with your rig. I've used it on my current Vox AC15, which is a very mid-humped amp. I've used it with my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, which is a very scooped amp. I think it sounds amazing through both of those. It's got a very definitive EQ curve with a lot of bass and a good amount of treble that makes it sure that you can play it with basically any amp. My friend Sam Popkin has a Big Muff style circuit that he uses with his Fender amps, and it's my favorite of all of his fuzzes, and he has some very nice Analog Man fuzzes. So I think that the Big Muff allows you to put your ideas through a fuzz circuit that will translate those ideas through the amp, and I think that's extremely valuable. So that's another reason I would recommend the Ram's Head Big Muff. And finally, the argument that I will make is that it works well from Hendrix to the Smashing Pumpkins. The Big Muff was released in 1969. Mike Matthews actually claims that Jimi Hendrix used the Big Muff. However, most people currently do not think he did and used another Mike Matthews designed pedal. However, it was used in the psychedelic era by one of my favorite all-time guitarists, Carlos Santana. The triangle version was used by Santana to get those classic tones you hear on the Woodstock album and Abraxas. And I think that that cannot be underestimated, that it can get those vintage, lush fuzz tones. David Gilmour famously used the Big Muff on The Wall. That Comfortably Numb solo is likely a Big Muff. And nobody would say that David Gilmour is heavy grunge, and so these perfect kind of lush, sustained fuzz tones can easily be gotten with a Big Muff. It's been prevalent in metal throughout the 80s. There are countless artists, I'm not an expert in metal, but there are countless artists that have used the Big Muff. And then it had this resurgence in the late 80s, early 90s with shoegaze, with bands like My Bloody Valentine really putting the Big Muff to use and making it this explosion wall of sound. And then most famously, probably by the Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan used an op-amp style Big Muff to get the sounds that made those records. And Pearl Jam, even later in grunge, used the Big Muff just to add a little more dirt to their JCM 800s. So this is a really versatile pedal that's been around through some of my favorite genres of music. Unlike fuzz faces, where I feel they only do one certain thing, or tone benders, I immediately think Led Zeppelin. I think a Big Muff can go through all of those and actually transcend them. So for that reason, I do think the Big Muff, specifically the Ram's Head Big Muff by Electro Harmonix, is the best all-around fuzz pedal. And if you don't have one, you should.